Hey, Hertz here. This is my FortressCraft Evolved base review. I want to give a shout out to GliderCat for motivating me to do this video and also to Flexible Games for introducing me to the game. I want to start out by saying all 4 overmines are dead and all 8 cryo spawners are also dead. I'm just waiting on the mats to build the railgun. Let's go over the mods. Advanced GAX by Flexible Games. This mod adds a generic autocrafters to the game so you don't have to use a manufacturing plant to craft some items. In particular, I'm using the Tube Crafter, the Mark III Battery Crafter, the Mark III Laser Crafter, and the Pristine Parts Recombinator. Construction Paste Rebalance by Flexible Games. This change to the game makes it so construction paste costs 1 for a reinforced concrete block, and that allows you to pick up the paste when the block is removed. Mark II Excavator by Flexible Games allows you to customize the area you'd like excavated, and it will also mine through ore if you tell it to. Nuclear Reactor, also by Flexible Games, adds a late game nuclear reactor that produces 50k power per second and also adds a production chain for processing uranium. This is an alternative to the geothermal generator, which can get messy because you have pipes burrowing down to the magma caverns, which can get in the way of other builds. Custom Auto Thief by Blah Blah. It works like the Ore Thief, except it can be customized to take other things from your inventory, such as bug parts or trash. Importantly, it's compatible with modded hoppers, which brings up my next mod. Tricky Storage Hoppers. This mod has a range of much larger hoppers that are available in the base game. All of these hoppers are also as fast at removing items as a logistics hopper. No Glow Stick Smoke mod by Mad Vandal. When you throw a glow stick in the regular game, it leaves a smoke trail in your face, so you can't see anything. This removes that smoke. GPS Tool by Mad Vandal gives you X, Y, and Z coordinates of where you are standing. This is very helpful when building things such as cargo lift shafts, so you don't accidentally place the cargo lift in an area that won't work in your base. Let's start with the initial coal setup. This is the first patch of coal that I really used. In the back here we have the Falcor system supplying a plasma cutter head to the drill. All the enrichers are powered by, and the drill is powered by the coal that's already enriched right here. If we follow this line down, we'll see where the line splits off here to power the laboratory. Notice I don't really use turntables anywhere because of Tricky's hoppers. You just place a hopper down and have it split right there. That'll act as a buffer. Then this comes in and makes a circle around the base about 10 meters out. And as you can see, it comes in here, and this is what powers the CPH. This bit of coal right here is only about 20,000 large, so it's going to run out sometime. You want to get off of this coal as soon as possible because it's often quite jarring to suddenly be without power at your base. The coal line encircling the base makes it very easy to place down pyrothermic generators and draw power for your initial base defense, but it can also be used for your first automation setup such as charged lithium coils. Just remember to place the non-powered setups off to the side so they're not in the way of the powered setups. I generally hand feed machines at the beginning of the game. This way I can control how many items I want and I don't need to clutter up the base running conveyors everywhere. I save all of that for the manufacturing floor, which I'll get to shortly. When you're off discovering the tier 2 ores, iron and lithium, you probably place a drill and you're powering it with your suit and a few power boosters. Then you come back with your ore and you can place it in your smelter like this. There are 9 hoppers here that are feeding into this one hopper that will smelt your ore. My first copper setup, there's copper underneath the base and a belt just runs and it feeds into this particular hopper. So the smelter is always doing something. And then these hoppers are your output for the bars. Here's my first research lab. I can walk up and place bars for whichever pod I want, and it will just make all the parts for the pod and begin researching. I upgraded this concept later on to replicate that setup with each of the different bars for each of the different pods. If you run out of anything, you can just hand feed the line either copper or tin or iron, and it will automatically start researching whatever research you're on. The lab is powered by 2 jet turbines. On the side is the fueling station, which supplies the high-energy composite fuel using logistics falcors. There are many turbines around the base that use logistics falcors for fueling and recovering the empties. Here's the power booster setup. You place copper bars on the one end, and it snakes through and makes the Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4, and Mark 5. It makes it awfully convenient to just walk up and grab a Mark II when making an induction charger, or to grab a few of the highest level version that you have when you're out exploring. Over here is a construction paste setup. I have the DLC that has a super construction paste grinder, so it makes a whole lot of paste. And here's the miscellaneous storage. I use this to store pristine bug parts and other random stuff like organic rock. Let's talk about the bug part collection network. I have beacons on top of logistics hoppers with vacuum turned on. Then I have these logistic falcors requesting the pristine parts and the eyes. Those are then sent over into this filtration system that pulls out the eyes to make lenses later. I used to have an array of hoppers that stored the pristine parts, but now I use the pristine organic reassembler from Flexible Games. It turns all of those pristine parts into recombined organic matter. This way I can pick out what parts I need if I need to reassemble anything. I generally don't use crystals for lenses because they cannot be reliably found. Over here we have the rune parts. This system picks up the trash. Inevitably, when you are building, you'll get some rough-hewn rock or organic detritus sucked up by the logistics hoppers. This system has an outlet for those items, which gets collected up by the falcors and macerated. This custom thief here has all of the items that I don't want in my inventory. These will also be sent over and macerated. Now the macerators here send the macerated bits of ore and send their output directly into this system, which will produce a few bars every once in a while. Down here we have the main bus. Each ore type is pulled up with the cargo lift and then immediately smelted. Then the bars are sent down each tube. This is done because depending on the resource level you're playing on, it will take from 2 to 25 ore to smelt 1 bar. Sending smelted bars gives you more throughput for each tube. Over here is another custom thief that pulls out smeltable ore from your inventory, immediately smelts it, and then sends it down the filtration system. Each ore has its own line here on the bus, and then we're also adding crystal and crystal clocks. I highly suggest that you make crystal clocks on site in the cold caverns, as they require 5 crystal each to make, and it's a machine, not a smelter, so you can make it down there. This will highly increase the density of items that you're moving through the tubes. If you don't do this, crystal will become a bottleneck once you start making imbued machine blocks. Over here, you'll see I never got around to getting chrome and moly on the line from a cargo lift. I just ended up placing down 4 5,000 slot hoppers for each, and that pretty much did the trick. You'll notice here there are 3 hoppers for each line. These are 2,000 slot hoppers. This back hopper is so that the filtration system doesn't back up. This second one is where the smelted ores come in from the cargo lifts. And this third one is if I just want to grab some nickel for my inventory, for example. If I didn't have this hopper here, I would have to remove this block, grab the nickel from this hopper, and then replace the block. Over here you can see where I'm doing the pulls for the manufacturing floor. This is pulling gold here for gold foil. this goes up, there's a grommet on the end of this going into a room upstairs in the manufacturing floor that we'll go over shortly. Here's like titanium for titanium housings, and this is nickel for secondary upgrade modules. Above the bus is the manufacturing floor. Every intermediate part that is used in the construction of a machine is created here in a room, and its output is placed out front. If we look at the entrance of the room, we'll see that there's a generator creating power for that room. If power is required in the manufacturing process, it gets a generator. This makes routing power very straightforward and uniform. Each room is also 5 wide on the inside and 6 tall. There are different depths, as you can see, based on the complexity of the build. Most rooms have a single input grommet in the middle which feeds a storage hopper, and then that hopper feeds 5 tubes that go to the machines on the inside. There is one power input, and if the machines need power, they will generally sit on a row of batteries. Here I've taken the wall off the side of a room to show a more complicated build that requires 2 inputs. Notice the second input has to come up over the top and feed this hopper from the top. If it were to go straight across and go across the top of this hopper, it would pull out its contents. This here is the steel alloy smelter. There are 5 of these going across. They are all sitting on batteries, being powered from the other side. And then their output hoppers are just going together and merging and coming out this grommet here. Notice there's no 2000 slot hopper in front of this particular build. That is because this build is solely dedicated as an input for the advanced machine block build over here. You'll notice that these turbines are all fed high energy composite fuel in a line that goes down the side here. There's a vat at the end back here that produces all of the fuel. There's, if you look right here, this is where the biomass comes up from the downstairs, and it continues along this back wall. There's a biomass hopper here underneath the controller, and it creates a closed loop system that will send the canisters out, and then it'll recover the empties. This refinery here, if you notice, the biomass goes along the back wall. This refinery here is solely made just for plastic pellets. This refinery is for the Falcor fuel network. The empty canisters come in down this pipe, and the biomass comes in from the back, and then it creates a high energy fuel, composite fuel, and that goes out up the top here. I will show you what the Falcor network looks like momentarily. This build over here is just another high energy composite fuel system for just for my own inventory. You can place iron in right here and it will make the empties. And then this system is the fuel system for this side of the room. Okay, up top here is the Falcor fuel network. These Falcors are requesting empty fuel canisters, and these beacons over here are supplying high energy composite fuel. There's something like 30 of each of these, so it has high throughput. If you think about it, this system is also a closed loop because it's supplying the fuel canisters and taking up the empties from places all over the map. We're going to trace one of these lines, and so we can see the process of mining. There are 2 different types of items that are mined on this floor. One of them is copper, and the other one is this one, which is tin. If you look up top here, there's a Falcor here, which is supplying the plasma cutter head for the drill that is right down here. That's outputting to a hopper, and then this is immediately smelted. All of this is sitting on an induction charger. This is powered by a turbine buried in the wall so the exhaust can't kill you. Back there, the fuel here is supplied once again by the Falcor fuel network. If you look up here, there's sky clearance all the way up there. And so there's also, you'll see this all over my builds. Whenever power is being made or consumed, I place down an Arthur charging station and a manufacturing plant. It just helps make your life easier. Coming up on gold here, you'll see that the setup looks an awful lot like tin does. Arthur charging station, fuel being delivered by the Falcor fuel network, turbine buried in the wall so you can't be killed by the exhaust. This turbine is also powering it's powering the smelters right here, but it's also powering the cargo lift. Now the cargo lift, this battery here has energy transmitter pointing down, and that's going to supply the energy down to the drill, all the way down on the wherever the drill is. And then above this, there is the Falcor supplying the plasma cutter head, and right here we have a matter mover. It's awfully convenient. The matter mover's maximum range is 64 meters, which is the same distance as this energy transmitter. So if you build the setup basically like this, going downwards, you can make this go all the way down to like the floor where you're drilling. So to do that, we're just gonna jump down a bit here. You'll see there's the plasma cutter head, the battery, there's the energy transmitter and the matter mover. We'll just keep going down here. I can just say we. And here we are at the bottom. We just covered, 300 meters down. So the plasma cutter head is being sent over here. It is then supplying the drill in the back. Now you're going to want to have this plasma cutter head hopper be on add only. If you don't do that, what will happen is that the lift will begin sending the cutter heads back up. I learned this the hard way. There's nothing like dealing with a few hoppers full of cutter heads that don't stack. Teleporting into the casting basins here, there are 2 full blast furnace casting basin setups for both chrome and moly. Each setup runs 4 lines from the shaft to a blast furnace, and then those connect to the casting basins back here. Then these output hoppers send the chrome and moly bars up front. Now each blast furnace uses 2500 power per second, so this is why I have Flexible Games' nuclear reactor mod. I'm putting in the primed fuel rods here and the compressed freeze-on here so that this thing doesn't blow up. And then this is touching the Mark IV battery. This battery is connecting to that battery by conduits here. There's glass in between here. Glass allows the energy to transfer without letting you in there, because if you are between 2 conduits when it goes off, you will die. So over here is the other basin setup. I originally had this powered by turbines. And here is the moly setup. Here's the freeze-on setup. You can see it's not complete. It only has 10 filters. You can have as many as 16 filters in one setup. Um, but it's got 3 compressors, 10 filters. Here is the compress feed for the gas storage. Down here is the bottler. This is powered by a nuclear reactor once again that sends all the power out to these batteries. You'll notice I'm not using conduits down here because I don't have a death wish, but these bottlers, so the bottler here will only work with the standard hoppers. It doesn't work with tricky hoppers, so keep that in mind if you're using them. I just have a ring around here with several hoppers all coming up here, feeding this this 5,000 slot hopper, and then this is also feeding the compressed freeze-on into the nuclear reactor. Behind the freeze-on setup, you'll see that there is the magna bore over there, and the climate control center. There's the magma storage unit, other remnants of the cryophyte. But in here is the mentioned before, this is where I'm making crystal clocks. The drill is right here. Here's the crystal clock maker, and it's making those and putting the crystal clocks right into the storage lift. This will save you a bunch of headache later on. So the biomass in all mining shafts look very similar, but this one is special because I'm going to actually use the biomass here to power the chlorine setup. So it's taking the biomass, feeding this reactor vat, and that's using the turbines to power this setup as opposed to nuclear like the other one. I figured it was awfully convenient to have biomass right here. So the chlorine setup looks just like all the rest of them. It's just sending up a bunch of chlorine right here for me to grab as I need it. Okay, this is molybdenum. Here we have the trencher drill and the trencher motor. These are, filling up. This looks, just like any of the other mining areas, except you don't have plasma cutter heads coming down because the trencher drills don't need them. Back here is a shaft to go down to sulfur, but we have a teleporter right here, so I will see you down there in a minute. Down here in the magma caverns is the sulfur setup. It's set up just like freeze-on and chlorine. In the front here are all the inputs and outputs. Just enter in prime fuel rods and freeze-on and take out sulfur. It looks just like the other ones. Down here, once again, it looks all similar. Bottler is just sending things up. Over here is the shaft that takes us down to nuclear, but once again we have a teleporter. I'll just take that and I'll see you in a second. Okay, here's the nuclear fuel processing area. Flexible Games has mentioned that there's a glitch in his mod here. The way to fix it is just to dig up something and replace it. That's what was causing that whole segment not to load. Let's see. Here we have the inputs and the outputs, and through here we have this turbine used to power the uranium trencher motors here. I've switched it ever since I started making the actual uranium fuel. I switched it to just use that. Here is where the yellow cake is made. and then it is sent to the centrifuges around here. The centrifuges, this line goes all the way around. The centrifuges create uranium dioxide, and that goes through the middle here, over here, but it's really annoying to be in here, so let me get out of here. Uranium dioxide goes in here, and then the high strength composite alloy goes through a machine here to create the empty fuel rods. And those go into this machine that's right here that creates the primed fuel rods. That goes up here to feed the reactor up top, along with, there's a giant hopper, a 2,000 slot hopper here, a freeze on, just to make sure it never runs out. But once again, same technique up here. The nuclear reactor touches a battery. The battery transfers its energy to the other battery over there through a conduit. The original setup had turbines power it with fuel being entered over there for these turbines, and this turbine's fuel entry point was over here, but it's all switched over to nuclear at this point. Back up top here, I have a resin farm. There are 2 or 3 Mark IV batteries in here. Let's go in and take a quick peek. The ablators and liquefiers are just on top of the batteries, and they're being powered by a couple of turbines over there on the side. They're just outputting right here to these refiners. This system can probably sustain about 2.5 of these refiners to be running at all times. Over here is the agitator. I have 2 of the most basic energy transmitters on the agitator, and it seems to work just fine. The liquid resin comes down here and goes into the top of this refinery, and it uses the resin recipe for making the composite fuel. Which just goes back in here. There was a time when I needed more resin than I had, so what I did was I took apart this reactor vat and just let the resin accumulate, and then I just hand fed this system with HECF that I got elsewhere. That seemed to work fine for the moment. Here's where I used to have the OET. I have 10 turbines transmitting 100% of their power into a Mark V battery here. They were all fueled by the Falcor fuel network, thanks in part to these 200 slot hoppers. The Falcors were able to keep up. But now I removed the OET here, and I have a couple of just kind of one-off builds. This is where I made cryo bombs. The bombs really take the edge off in the cryo fight. Like if you place a hopper with a cryo bomber or a Falcor bomber with like maybe 25 or 100 bombs in it, it will really take the edge off of when a cryo spawner is just pumping out cryo. Now back here is where I have the lens polishing system. It's a little one-off system that I just made because there's abundant power in this thing. So you put any lens in this hopper over here, it creates an unfocused polished lens, and then this is the lens chromer that just takes chrome and will make the polished chrome lenses. This is the Hodor system. There's a miner in back on a coal vein back here. It's outputting into a large one-type hopper. The fuel compressor can just take 200 coal at a time to start a craft. And you really don't want to put the coal on a conveyor belt because you'll slow down the process immensely. So if you're using Tricky's hoppers, put it into a one-type hopper, and then the compressor can just grab the coal out of there, and it'll go as fast as possible. So that's pretty much it. I'm just waiting on alloyed upgrade modules. You need 14,000 of them to make the railgun, and each of those take 10 gold foil, 10 titanium housings, and 10 secondary upgrade modules. That totals 420,000 bars to make it. So I would suggest starting early as possible on making the alloyed upgrade modules. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. Thank you for watching, and take care.